here likes a good horror game? I mean, horror games have had a dedicated following for a long time, and they're certainly not for everybody, but those looking for a good scare will be eating well over the next year and a half or so. Welcome to the page, everybody. Chaos, and today we are going to list out the most realistic upcoming horror games for 2022 and 2023. Now, these are going to be games that should absolutely terrify you. So be sure to let me know what your favorite recent horror game is, what your favorite game of all time is that's scary. Drop a like, make sure you have that sub turned on. And we start off with The Evil Nun, The Broken Mask. Even if you haven't seen the Conjuring films, you probably have seen pictures of that one scary nun character from the franchise. There's something very disturbing about nuns doing very non-nun things, and that seems to be the entire premise of this first game on our list. There have actually been a handful of Evil Nun games before, and The Broken Mask is a remake of the original. Now, what started as a mobile game franchise is finally coming to PC with a lot of upgrades. I mean, it's gonna make it better suited for the platform. You play as a young student being stalked by an evil nun with a giant hammer who's trying to punish you by solving various puzzles, exploring the environment. You can try to save yourself, and the other students here are trapped. The game is expected to launch in either August or September of this year, and I think it may actually take off. Mobile games getting ported to other systems usually don't end that well, but I think Evil Nun: The Broken Mask has potential. I mean, with enough care, it could actually become a decently popular franchise on PC and console. Next up, for Solis, set on the far side of Mars. It's a third-person horror thriller that takes place in one long night. A Solis. You're an engineer responding to an alarm at a mining base, but you quickly find out that everything is wrong and you have to figure out what happened while also making sure you don't end up dead in the process. It looks amazing graphically, and the concept, it's actually pretty interesting. It's kind of like a more scaled back version of the Dead Space premise, which I'm here for. Sci-fi horror can be really hard to do effectively because you have to make the crazy technology feel realistic and grounded, but Fort Solis seems to do that perfectly. Now, there's no official release date attached to it just yet, but since we've been getting more gameplay trailer news, I think this one's going to be out by early next year. You can actually wishlist it on Steam right now, and I can't find a lot of information about consoles, but I think they'll be coming. Autopsy Simulator. Now, with a name like that, you probably aren't expecting a really horrific experience, but this is a unique take on a horror genre, and it's the kind of experience you can only have in a video game. This first-person horror sim has you playing as a practiced pathologist dissecting various bodies and trying to get answers as to how they died. The game was made in collaboration with real-life doctors to make it as realistic as possible, but there's also a story going on in the background set in the 1990s of New Orleans. I've never seen anything like it. It's a good idea. A horror game where you play as a person performing autopsies and the gameplay is simulation? I think this is going to be good. It's gotten really solid early reception. It's set to release on the PC in November. This next one has me super excited. System Shock: The Remake. This game has been in development forever, but it's finally going to be coming to us soon. The original System Shock was a PC exclusive that dropped back in '94. It took first-person horror to a new level. By implementing various RPG elements, System Shock created this terrifying experience that you really couldn't get anywhere else. Now, the sequel is often remembered as the scarier of the two. There's a very passionate team of fans at Night Dive Studios currently developing a full remake. The project was crowdfunded all the way back in 2016, but it's been delayed countless times. The game is currently slated to release this year, but without a solid date, I would say it's safe to assume the team is probably going to push it back again, but I think we're going to get it in 2023. They're putting a lot of care into it. I think it's going to be amazing, even if it is in development prison right now. System Shock was an absolute masterpiece. Silent Hill: The Reboot. Now, leaks are flying around the internet all over the place about a brand new Silent Hill game, and fans of the series are skeptical. I think we're all at least a little curious, though, to see what Konami has in store. A new Silent Hill game hasn't been officially confirmed, but since the publisher was doing their best to shut down these leaks, to me, that's confirmation. There hasn't been a new Silent Hill game since Downpour in 2012, so naturally people are eager for things to get back on track, but since the last good Silent Hill game was 2004, hopes are low. But if the new game is half as good as PT, I think we're in for a treat, and I'm sure that is going to look absolutely incredible. It's going to be one of the best looking horror games of all time. We just need to hope it's good. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, following the frustrating storyline of Friday the 13th, the game, fans of the relatively new studio Gun Interactive jumped for joy when they announced a new multiplayer experience based on another classic horror movie franchise. Friday the 13th ended up being a great game in the end, but countless legal issues prevented the developers from actually being able to update it. This time around, things are different. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre will be another asymmetrical multiplayer game where players control different characters from the franchise and they try to complete various objectives before getting sliced open by whoever was lucky enough to play the killer. Now, judging by the gameplay trailer, the visuals are very accurate to the classic movies, and the attention to detail and fan service is probably going to be just as awesome as it was in the Friday the 13th. It launches next year. I can't wait to see how it carries on from where Friday the 13th left off. The Last of Us Part 1. Now, I know the ridiculous price tag has generated controversy. The remake of the first Last of Us is still going to be beautiful and terrifying. The original game launched in 2013. It was praised for everything. We already know this. Storytelling, gameplay, all of it. But it was actually scary, too. The infected enemies in this, the clickers, they were unsettling. When you were trying to make it through an area quietly, every little sound made you jump out of your seat. It looks pretty, and they're adding graphical features for the PC version. It's likely going to be the best-looking Sony game of all time. So while the price tag is high and the story may be played out, it's on the list because it's still a scary game. Scorn. What a name. Set for the release of this October, it's a single-player survival horror game inspired by the works of H.R. Geiger, an artist who famously designed the iconic Xenomorph in the original Alien movie. This game will have you playing as a skinless humanoid creature on a strange planet with monsters and horrific imagery as you explore its non-linear fashion to try and get answers. So who are you? Where are you? What the heck happened? Hopefully, you can get to the bottom of it, but you're surely going to have to take a few breaks along the way because it looks horrifying. The game is currently set to launch on the PC via Steam and Windows Store, so we'll see how it goes. And hopefully a PS5 port is somewhere in the pipeline because this is probably going to be a popular game. Speaking of popular, Dead Space, the remake. Now, Dead Space 3, huge misstep. Ended up killing the entire franchise, but with a remake of the original, the works, we're back, baby. The Dead Space remake is being developed by Motive Studio, the same team that made Star Wars Squadrons, and many journalists have compared it to a Resident Evil 2 remake in the sense that it will follow the same story but take some creative liberties with the gameplay and the exact same progression. It's going to put a new spin on things, add new scares, but still be original. Now, longtime fans are skeptical. Everything in the Dead Space remake we've seen so far, though, looks good. I think it's going to make for some really intense moments, if nothing else. The game is set to drop on the X, the PS5, and the PC in January of next year, so keep your eyes open. We'll probably be getting a trailer pretty soon. The Callisto Protocol, speaking of Dead Space. It's a spiritual successor, currently in development at Striking Distance Studios, who is a new studio headed by Glenn Schofield, previously of Sledgehammer Games and one of the main creative minds behind Dead Space. He plays a prisoner in a colony called the Black Iron during a strange alien invasion that may have been orchestrated by the prison warden. Now, the gameplay and atmosphere, very similar to Dead Space. Extreme violence, extreme gore. It's originally part of the PUBG universe, interestingly enough, but has since been spun off into its own project, and that's probably the best. Otherwise, it would have been a really weird universe. Everything that Dead Space did, the Callisto Protocol is trying to do better, and literally everything we've seen so far looks incredible. It's set to launch on the PC, past-gen consoles, current-gen consoles, all on December 2nd of this year. And our final game of the list. Resident Evil 4 the Remake's probably the game with the most skepticism surrounding it. I get it. We all knew a remake was coming. I don't think we wanted to acknowledge it. The original RE4 is one of the most revolutionary games of all time, and changing in any capacity feels sacrilegious. Capcom's remake spree has been super successful for them, and I'm sure they're going to have their best people working on the RE4 remake, but fans, they're worried. The way I see it, the RE2 remake was a masterpiece, and if the RE4 remake is the same level of quality, they are basically holding the entire gaming industry in their hands, and they have to be aware of it. The game was finally confirmed earlier this year, is expected to launch next year, and I know people, they want to be down on this game automatically, but with how good RE2, 7, and 8, I don't know. I think they're going to make it happen. It's got to be at least on par with the original. I mean, my fingers are crossed. I just totally understand everybody's skepticism. I'll be lying if I said I wasn't 100% sure it was going to be amazing as well. We'll see. There you have it. Those are some of the most realistic upcoming horror games you do not want to miss. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you soon.